In this lesson, I'm going to show you guys how to animate with auto key mode. What I have up on the screen right now are some FBX reference structures of a guy getting knocked out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a biped system, and I'm going to basically use these FBX structures as a guide, and I'm just going to kind of plot him into place. So first I want to make sure I don't mess these guys up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select them, and I'm going to freeze selection. So now I don't have to worry about messing those up. Okay, so let's import our biped system, and I'm just going to drag him up like that, and I'm just going to set him to, I think I figured 150, no, let's go up to 170, which is probably close. Yeah, that looks about right. So let's change this from wireframe to realistic, and let's give him a ground to sit on. So I'm going to let's create a plane under him, and I'm going to get rid of this hideous purple, and I'm going to reduce the length and width so we're not, wasting any time. Change this to 320, and then I am just going to move it to the center, and then I'm going to freeze it. Alright. Alright, so let's hit G to get rid of the grid. And so now we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to start with here. So I am going to start by positioning the biped, kind of give him a starting position. So I'm going to go all the way to frame 1. I want to zoom in a little bit here. And I want to find his center point to move his whole body, so I'm just going to click on list and select bip01, and I'm just going to kind of move him into place. In this situation, it is of course best to use all your views just to make sure fits in there. But we're just using this as a reference, so it's not that important that we're 100% accurate. So I'm just trying to match his pelvis, since that's kind of a starting point. Okay, so with animating with auto key mode, the way it works is that whenever you make a change, once you turn the mode on, anytime you make a change in a model anywhere on the timeline, which is what I'm looking at way down here, it will create a keyframe. So I just first want to click auto key down here, and then I'm going to start positioning this character in this first pose on frame 0. So I'm just going to use this view here, and again I'm going to work a little quickly just for the sake of time. So we see his back foot kind of comes back, this one comes forward and up a little bit, and he's tilted down. Alright. A little back, and rotate it down. So the way these biped structures are set up, you can either they have inverse kinematics set on the feet and wrists, so if you move the feet or wrists, then the arm will adjust accordingly. But you can also just grab the individual pieces and rotate it, right? So I'm going to try and fix this leg back here. place. Let's move him down and up. So as you can see, while I'm doing this, here you can see on frame 1 that it's created a keyframe for those objects, anything that I'm moving. Now the problem with this is that for this, since I'm kind of going to be going frame by frame here, it's fine, but the problem with auto key mode is that no matter what change you make, no matter how big or small, it's going to make a keyframe for it. The alternate to using this mode is set key, which unfortunately does not work on bipedal objects, just based on how they're set up. When you have set key mode, you actually have to click this key right here whenever you want to create a keyframe. The good thing about if I hit Control and select multiple objects, like for example his spine, I can rotate them all at once since he's kind of pitching forward. And then I'm going to tilt him back a little bit. Oh, and then he's twisted a little bit, so and a bit more. Alright, so I'm going to move the second arm into position. Switch to local because sometimes that's just easier to manipulate. Local just basically means it's going to change the rotation based on where it is in the hierarchy. So now for a moment, it's a little hard to see. So you can see that unfortunately I forgot to modify my biped here because he only has one finger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to motion and to figure mode. And I'm going to just give him more fingers. And I might as well do the toes here too. There we go. I'll turn that off. And unfortunately this is something I should have done in the beginning, so I'm just going to push him back into position by selecting the entire biped. Just kind of push him back into place. And so now I can grab these fingers. I'm just control selecting a bunch at once, and I'm going to switch to rotate, and then I'm just going to kind of bend them a little bit to match. And the thumb. There. You can see that when I'm in auto key mode that red border is all around. I'm just going to walk you through this first pose. Control select all these fingers. And kind of back up a little bit. Okay. So, that's a good start for the first pose. You obviously probably would want to go in and bend his toes and stuff just to make it look all nice and polished. But for the sake of this demonstration, so next thing you want to see is kind of where you kind of have to gauge where the next set of keyframes are going to be. I mean, you could go through every single frame, but you know that was likely to drive you mad. So I'm gonna just kind of go right about there where he kind of stands up. So I am going to find, let's see, center point. I'm gonna animate it. So you know what, let's just go with that. Oops. With this many objects, it's just sometimes easier to use the list view. So as you can see, I'm about 4 frames in on the timeline, and I'm creating more keyframes just by moving the objects around. When you're not animating, you obviously want to turn off auto key mode, otherwise you're going to mess things up for yourself. So let's rotate that a little bit. Centered right. Pivots to the side. So now you can see as I'm doing this, so I'm just gonna try and get approximately here. Okay, so now you can see that within those first 4 frames, he just kind of straightens himself up. Let's turn freeze all, and then let's go back to list. Let's do hide selection. Oops. There we go. Let's just stay here for now. So it looks like I ran into a little bit of a bug, because he doesn't quite start where I need him to. So let's take a look. I'm guessing it's this point right here that I'm having a problem with. So with the biped, his pivot point selected, I'm going to actually open up the curve editor. Right, and this is good. What this does is show me all the keyframes for any selected objects. And it has 2 modes. It has a curve editor and dope sheet. So I'm going to use the dope sheet, which is going to show me all the keyframes for this object, right? So I'm going to move this back a little bit and close this. So it looks like I do have 2 keyframes set. That's better. So the especially when you're using auto key, when you have to be very careful about accidentally creating extra keys. Sometimes you might run into a slight hiccup or whatnot, and the dope sheet is going to be a great place to find where exactly that is. But again, it's only for the objects you have selected, so you kind of have to narrow it down just by kind of looking at it carefully. But I mean, that's the basis of it. And like I said, when you're done animating, obviously I'm not, but I don't want to have to make you guys sit there and watch me do this whole thing. Be sure and turn off auto key when you're done. Otherwise, you might end up with a lot of keyframes that you don't need.